It was official. She wasn't a saint. But Jenny had never claimed to be a saint. None of her Amish brethren did either. She knew she should be grateful for her family, and she was. Her husband's kinner were as much hers as they were his, especially Annie, who'd been so young when her mother died that she didn't remember her and thought of Jenny as her mom. And Joshua and Mary treated her as a beloved mother, even though they remembered their mother. But ever since Hannah had announced that she and Chris were going to have a baby, Jenny had felt the unaccustomed and very unwelcome emotion of envy. They'd only been married a year. She and Matthew had been married for 3. It wasn't fair. Almost immediately, she was ashamed of herself. But she couldn't seem to help it. She wanted a baby of her own. A bupli. She loved that word. It sounded so sweet, so happy and bouncy, so cherished. Instead, so many months had passed, and she'd found out she wasn't pregnant. She wouldn't be carrying a baby close to her heart. She wouldn't share the miracle of creating life with Matthew and watching it come into the world. Sometimes she wondered if she was showing God she didn't appreciate all he had brought into her life. After all, he'd brought her back here to have a second chance with a man she'd never forgotten. She'd gone through such a valley of despair when she'd been seriously injured, scarred, in her work as a news reporter overseas. Yet Matthew had seen past that, cherished her, and shared the most precious children in the world with her. He'd said that if they had kinner, that would be wonderful, but if they didn't, then that was God's will, and he seemed fine with that. Content, even. God had even found a way for her to continue to write about the children affected by war she'd grown to care so much for, right here on a farm in the heart of peace and love and simplicity. She and Matthew had talked about how she felt when she didn't become pregnant. He'd been kind, understanding, and had tried to comfort her. He had been everything she had hoped for about it. But he wasn't unhappy that they hadn't had children together yet. He reminded her that before they'd gotten married, he'd told her he didn't care if her injuries prevented her from having their child. He had 3 to share with her, he'd said, and if they were meant to have a child together, that God would send one. It was a matter of God's will, he told her. And he was content. But she wasn't. If she tried not to think about it, every month she got a reminder that she wasn't pregnant. And this was the way she rewarded him, with a lack of gratitude, with mental whining, with tears when she found that another month had come and gone, and a tiny glimmer of life wasn't beginning inside her. Sighing, Jenny threw down her pen and got up from the big table that dominated the kitchen. She was tired of working, couldn't seem to stay focused on what she was writing. Best to just get busy doing something else. Idleness wasn't encouraged here. Not that she'd ever been an idle person, but everyone pulled their weight here, contributed, from small children with chores appropriate to their age and ability, to older family members doing what they could after they moved into a dowdy house, the sort of mother-in-law apartment at the back of the family home. She glanced at the clock. 1/2 an hour before the kinner got home. Time to do something constructive. If she couldn't write, then she should at least get supper started or read up the place a little. Funny how she'd gotten to the point where she thought in Pennsylvania Dutch. If anyone had ever told her that one day she would return to her grandmother's house here in Paradise and marry her girlhood crush and become Amish, she would never have believed them.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.